there's nothing like cracking that cellophane and pulling that record out. It just smells great.
Welcome to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Non-stop hardcore energy.
I love the show, guys. You're awesome.
Unlike any other.
With your host, John the Bod, a.k.a. the Bod Father.
Man, this stuff rocks.
The views and opinions of the guests do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of BODS Mayhem Hour, its staff, affiliates, or sponsors. Parental discretion is advised. Welcome to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Hi, this is Ann.
And this is Brian of Darsombra.
And you're listening to
BODS Mayhem Hour.
Hey everybody, welcome to BODS Mayhem Hour. I am your host, John the Bod, aka the Bod Father. And as always, I bring you guys and gals awesome interviews. Today it's an honor and a huge privilege to welcome Brian and Ann of Darsombra. And they will release their new album entitled Dumesday Book via their own record label on August 25th. And you want to check out the single Shelter in Place. It's out right now. Please give these guys a good listen too. So welcome to the podcast, and how y'all doing?
Good. How are you?
Doing great. When you guys think back about this band and when it came together, what was your realistic expectations for it, or did you have any at all?
Oh, that's an interesting story because the band started out as just me. It was a one-man band basically for almost 10 years. And I had a metal band I was doing, which was kind of, starting to kind of fall apart. And I was just getting, frustrated with, I wanted to tour and play shows a lot. And it was very hard to keep a bunch of band members together all the time. And so I was just inspired by people like Joe Preston from the Thrones and Robert Fripp, who were going out and just doing these, single band, just like one man band kind of things. And so that was the original idea, was just to be able to keep touring and playing and not have to rely on, a whole bunch of people all the time. And I did that for about almost 10 years. And then me and Ann teamed up around 2010.
Yeah, we just started collaborating without any purpose or goal. It just seemed like the right thing to do because my background was in video art. So at the time I was just making videos for his music. And then over time, it made sense to start playing music as well. So
yeah, so then we became then we were both.
I think the current incarnation started about 10 years ago.
Yeah, yeah. So
but it was a very organic evolution.
Yeah, and there was never any goals of anything other than to just play shows and then, have a good time, put out music.
When did it feel right though? When did it hit you both to say, we just need to start a band? We need to start just me and you rocking out.
Well, yeah, the first time we did, it was a friend of ours was curating this.
It wasn't even our idea.
No, it wasn't our idea. A friend of ours was curating this sort of multi-arts event with people. I think somebody was doing. Yeah, somebody was doing some kind of. Were we the only band that played that night? I think there were
other bands, but the whole idea was the friend wanted us to show my video work behind him while he played. So it was her idea, really.
Yeah.
We never put two and two together to collaborate. We'd become friends, but it just didn't occur to us, this is something that could work together.
And then when we did it, it was like,
oh, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
From here on out, this is what we do.
And then a few years later, we just decided, let's expand the on-stage presentation of the band and bring Ann up on stage as well, instead of just being in the audience projecting visuals. And so we got a synthesizer, and I had a gong laying around, and we just
playing the gong.
Yeah, we just thought we could have more dimension to the music, more dynamics to it and stuff. And again, it felt right pretty much immediately when we started working in that incarnation of the band as well.
How good does it feel though to look back and say, yeah, we made the right decision to do this?
That does sound good. We don't think about that a lot. Maybe we should be thinking about that more.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing that nuance.
No, I think about it a lot because I knew I was doing the one-man band thing for a while, and I think back and I'm like, man, this band is so much more dynamic and fun with a partner in it, So
yeah. How excited are you guys to have your new album entitled Doomsday Book getting ready to drop on August 25th? And did the album turn out exactly the way you all wanted it to?
Yes, we love it. We're so excited to put this album into the world. This is our pandemic album. So we composed all the music like right when lockdown happened. Like, okay, there's nothing to do. Let's jam and play lots of music and record whatever we remember to record and filter out all the stuff we don't need and refine and refine and refine for the past 3 years or so. And so because we put the time into it, it really feels like, all right, it's as close to the vision as we could hope after so many years of collaboration. I feel like the goal as an artist is that you try to achieve that sound or vision or whatever concept you have in your head as precisely as you can, or just as effectively as you can. I totally feel like that about this very weird concept album.
Yeah, and in a way, it's nice. It feels like we're sort of closing the door, or like on the whole pandemic experience for all the
trauma of the pandemic,
all the wackiness, all the
weird feelings that are all in that album.
And so it's like now we have it in a a thing, and it's out in the world now. Now we can sort of move on to the next phase of whatever that happens to be.
We have some ideas for what's next, but it's really exciting to get this out. Short story long.
That was going to be my next question. How difficult was it to set on these songs and have this album stored away? And now you're finally getting to release it. And some of these bands do have albums that's been recorded, but will they ever see the light of day? I mean, your mind frame could be somewhere else by the time you start on another one. And you're just sick of what you created.
Yeah, you got it. It's like when you hear about the grad students talk about working on their dissertation or project or whatever. I'm not a grad student, so I don't know the term. But the idea of working on a project for many, many years, you really have to keep the momentum up.
Yeah, this was kind of my favorite album for the summer of 2021, and the demos, and just kept listening to it. And for a while, we were just like, this is great, And so actually, we're kind of at a point now where
I'm not over it yet.
Yeah, but
I still like to listen to it.
I kind of, but it's like, I'm like, okay, I've heard it enough now. Next,
Yeah, I haven't heard enough, which is good because I still have a few videos I want to do to some of the songs. So I've got to listen to them a lot, whether I like it or not. So it's a good thing.
But I meticulously toiled away at the audio, the recordings of this forever.
Yeah, that was intense.
So I like to have breaks from it now and again, but I think it's solid. I really enjoy the album. I'll listen to it some more. I imagine a bunch as we promote it over the next couple of months or however long, next couple of years, whatever we do. It's it's very all encompassing. It's very long. It's a double album, so there's a lot there to sink your teeth into.
And you have a great album when you don't get sick of your own music.
Or else you have a really big ego. That might be
It's like look what I created, guys. Send it to everybody like, yeah, it's good. It's really good. So I thought this was interesting. Doomsday Book takes its name from the 11th century census book, which served as the oldest public record in the English language. How did you discover this, and why go with this name for the album?
That's a really good question. I think that one was kind of on me. We were struggling to figure out the name of the album for a while because, you have a 75-minute album that encompasses your feelings from initial lockdown to basically vaccination and first tour back on the road. So what do you call that? Like, we had all these funny other names like Threshold, I think, was one of them, and something of a something. I forget all the other names, but Dumesday Book worked because at the time I was starting to conceptualize a music video for the song Gibbet Lore off the album, and we just put that video out on our YouTube page Tuesday,
2 days ago. Yeah.
So 8-minute music video, very silly. It's kind of like a Renaissance or medieval theme. The idea was, like, there are parts of the song that make me think of Monty Python and the Holy Grail. And there are parts of the song that make me think of, like, festivals of fools and all these ancient, whatever, medieval rituals that people would have with superstition and stuff. And the Black Plague, obviously, was part of that too. During the pandemic, I felt like for a lot of people, I mean, many continents experienced the Black Plague, the bubonic plague in the 1300s. And it was 150 years. The plague lasted 150 years. That is no kind of 3-year, we're in a pandemic kind of mindset.
No.
So with all that in mind, I was researching Black Plague, coming up with concepts for this video that just came out, even though this was way back in the conceiving stage. And I came across the Dumesday Book as one of the things that they used to figure out how many people died in the plague. So that's where the link was. And I thought, man, that's a really cool title, because the idea is it's a census. I mean, he worked for the census in 2000. Like, we have plenty of census stories, but but it's a census called the Dumesday Book. Like, how heavy is that? I guess the idea being that there won't be a more exact list of people until Judgment Day, Doomsday, whatever you want to call it, in the old European Christian tradition, I suppose. Not really a tradition we usually follow, but it really seemed appropriate because the album is such a complete document of feelings and experiences that we had during that year and some change before we got vaccinated.
What led the track Shelter in Place to be the first song released off this album? What was it about that said, we got to get this out? Because I know there could have been another one that should have went out possibly first.
Sure.
Well, technically, we did have a single.
Yeah, we did put out a couple of tracks last year from it called The Doctor and Night Garden. But then, I don't know, we just decided, we were advised that it might be good to put out some tracks on the album in the lead up to putting it out, because that seems to be the way, things work these days. And so that one was, fun to put out. It was, it's short. It's the intro to the album. It's kind of,
sets the stage.
Yeah, it kind of sets the stage for the mood of the rest of the album. I think what was the working title for
Majestic?
it? Majestic, because it had this very
terrible majesty.
Terrible majesty. It had this big, like
that feeling we first got back in early March, mid-March, when it's like, wait a minute, what? How long? What? We have to stay home? We can't go to work?
Yeah, it just sounds like a good intro to the album. I mean, there's no other reasons. I mean, our songs are all over the place. They're weird. We don't have, that one's a single or that one's a hit. They're just weird little sketches, or like not even sketches, like soundscapey, or just we're not like a traditional band. So it could have been any track really, but I don't know, we just went with that one just because it was like it's almost like putting on a blindfold and throwing a dart at the a chart or something.
Which one is next?
Well, how's the feedback been from these two releases, Shelter in Place and Gibbet, Lord? What's been like the best feedback that you've seen so far? Does anybody say cut down on this or add more of this?
Gibbet Lore has been, I think Shelter in Place kind of went under the radar for a lot of folks because the video it was just like a sort of placeholding video. It wasn't like a conceptual music video like Gibbet Lore.
Yeah, it just kind of had the album art basically, and just while the music played, it wasn't like a video proper.
I mean, I think the place that we're at as human beings consuming music, we usually consume it on the internet, possibly watching a video. And because we're a visual band, the Gibbet Lore video does seem to have engaged a lot of people pretty quickly, which is great. And we've gotten some really fun feedback, I would say. People seem to be getting the joke, I hope, because there is a little bit of a joke in the video as well about the idea of false optimism during a plague.
Yeah, people have been saying nice things like, what were some of the things? Mesmerizing and...
Sure, things like that, but also like, this is totally
fun,
ridiculous.
Silly, but awesome. I don't know, just all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, it's hard to quite remember, even though it's only been the past couple of years. I don't know. We have this festival we're playing this weekend in West Virginia, so our brains are very like, oh yeah, put the video out. Okay, now get ready for this festival.
What's the nucleus though that keeps you moving right along and creating Darsombra's music in general? What is it about you two that just keeps riding along with this?
It's so fun.
Yeah.
I can't stop.
I have to do this. I mean,
it's an obligation for the soul.
No, well, if I don't do it, I feel like, well, what the hell am I doing with my life? If I'm, just doing some day job kind of a thing, or
I have a day job. You have a day job too, technically.
Yeah, but this is what feeds my soul, and so it's like almost
and this
like
is kind of more of a day job than our day job.
Yeah, but as long as I've been making music, as long as because I've been in bands my whole life, and it's just I don't know, it's something I have to do, or I feel like I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing with my time here on Earth.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a public service for the public that wishes to consume it. Like I kind of feel like if we didn't do it, we'd be letting ourselves down a little bit.
Yeah.
Brian, I swear, man, you just hit the nail on the head for me and you both, man, because I have a day job that I just absolutely want to just, as soon as I get there in 5 minutes, I'm ready to come back. I'm ready to be done with it.
Yeah, quit your job.
Oh, how I wish. How I wish. But this is...
It'll come for you the day when it seems right to leave. Because we are self-employed, so we had to leave like jobs where we were working as skilled technicians. And
we tour a lot, and so it's hard to have a job.
There was that moment of jumping off the cliff.
Yeah, there was, because it was hard to have a job that'll let us. We do these massive tours where sometimes we'll go out for
8 weeks,
a month or two, and there's not a lot of jobs out there that'll let you come back after doing something like that. So we over many years, I've meticulously tooled my life so that I can, I figured out a way to make this, work for now.
Yeah, it's kind of like a multi-stage approach between being self-employed with a trade that you can, get people excited about, and that people won't replace with a machine. Like I cut hair, we teach yoga, that type of thing. We work for Baltimore City Park and Recs, teaching yoga at the rec center, and like super low cost of living.
Yeah,
like that's really very important to us. Like we own a home, but that home was not. We couldn't buy a house now. This was like 10 years ago when buying a house was a lot cheaper.
We're just really good at being frugal because it's like, we're like artists. And so we have to always figure out how do we make the most with, limited budgets. Yeah.
It's kind of a game. I mean, I know that sounds really messy and weird and complicated to put it that way, but because we've been doing it so long, sure, there were moments of extreme stress and freak out, like, oh, do we need to go back and get conventional jobs? Are we going to make this work? But over time, it's gotten easier with practice. And so because of that, there's almost a strange pleasure in learning to live with as small a footprint financially as possible.
Yeah, and we're really good at it. After a while, it just sort of becomes second nature. But when it's very scary to take that leap. Many years, I mean, all of us will go like, oh my God, you can't just do that. And how will you live? And how will you eat? And all this. And yeah, we had all those fears as well. And then I just, we just figured it out and made it work. And
for now,
for now,
we never hold our breath.
Yeah, no, you never know. So all of a sudden, something horrible could happen, and all of a sudden we need a lot more money than we make doing this, and then we have to, I don't know.
Here, but for the grace of Medicaid.
Oh man, I bought my Mega Millions lottery ticket, so
there you go. That's another way. That's probably just as good a way.
Let's hope I win it, so I'll never have to go back to work again. I can do this full time. I feel like this is my sanctuary. This is what takes my stress and everything that I go through away. I mean, this is it. I love doing this. Absolutely love it.
Yeah.
Right. And it brings people pleasure. I mean, you're making the world, as weird as it sounds, a better place.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Was there a track for this album, guys, that totally ended up sounding different than what it was intended to? Was there one that kept changing or no?
Yeah, I mean, kind of in a weird way. I don't want to say all of them, but there's a song on the album that will probably be our next single, maybe. I'm going to work on the video for it when we get back from this next tour. So over the winter time is when it'll come out. And it sounds the most like a traditional Darsombra song. It's called Azimuth. It's like maybe 15 or 18 minutes long. So there you go. That's why it sounds like some of our older work, like from Polyvision or Climax Community or whatever. But that song we originally conceived as like just a 6-minute kind of like summertime jam, turned into an 18-minute wintertime, I don't want to say yawn, but something like that. Just very mellow and relaxing with a real gentle but real official build up, and kind of a surprise at the end too, even for us as we were working on it.
And pretty much a lot of the tracks, because they all started out, from just jams, and which were just like sketches. The jams are just little sketches. And the way we work with a lot of layers and loops and stuff like that, because, you know, it's just the two of us. There's no drummer. There's no, you know, it's not like we have a whole bunch of people. So, you know, we start with these little sketches, and then as we sort of comb through them and continue to work on them, you know, all these new pieces just seem to come out of the ether that end up sort of, you know, I don't know, just like
they coalesce.
Yeah, like coming into the vision that. So pretty much a lot of these, you know, like the basis of most of them sounds like the original jams, and then all of a sudden these new parts just came out of nowhere as we were sort of refining them and getting them recorded and into their final.
Yeah,
form.
even in the mixing process, we'd be surprised about things. Gibbet Lore has like a audio clip that Brian made when he was a teenager on a crank call that he did, where he called up some guy and he just would say the word rock. And, you know, other calls he had made with people, they'd be like, what? And he'd say rock again. And that was, well, you tell it, you were there.
Well, and I don't know. I was very young.
You hit the right guy.
I hit the right guy. Yeah, I would just make these phone. I was going through
guy.
my record collection at the time and looking for like any 4-letter words, and I would call whatever the local exchange, and then the numbers, the last 4. This is really weird. The last 4 numbers of the call were whatever that word was, you know.
This
So
was back in the days of like rotary telephones.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And it might have been the word rock or any other number of, you know, any other
like 1-800 rock.
4-letter word. And so I called this guy whose last 4 digits just happened to be rock. And I go, rock. And they go, huh? And it was a woman answered the phone at first. She's like, what? And I go, rock. And that was my whole concept. I'm just going to repeat this word over and over again and see what the people do.
How old were you?
I don't know, like 10, 12,
You were older
somewhere in that.
I
13.
felt like the voice was starting to change.
But anyway, I call this guy up. A woman answers her person. I go, rock. And she's like, huh? And I'm like, rock. And that's all I say. And she's like, huh? And then I hear her say, some crazy person's on the phone. It must be for you. And she hands her phone over to this guy. And he's like, hello. And I'm like, rock. And he goes, yeah. And I just keep repeating it. And every time I say the word rock,
so good.
he gets more, yeah, 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 yeah. And I'm just like,
and we hear your voice like cracking.
and I start laughing. I'm giggling.
So
You can hear
cute.
my puberty voice like cracking up, like, you know. And so I don't know. That's just something I always kept, and I would play from time to time.
And he managed to play for me at some point, like, ooh, oh, that's 11 years later. Let's put it in the song.
Yeah, and it's like, you got to put that crank call in the song, and I'm like, really, huh? You know.
It just seemed to work,
And
but that was not part of the original concept.
No, not at all, not at all.
The original concept. I don't know. It's fun to let things evolve like that. I mean, I guess because we don't really fall into a genre that's real solid. I would say we fall into like a shapeless, shape-shifting kind of Odo from Deep Space Nine kind of formula.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got to get my Trek moment here. So because of that, we aren't constrained by, well, this is outside the formula, so we better not do something like
anything
goes. Baby Brian in there.
Yeah. It's kind of like a big gumbo or something.
It's
where
really a gumbo.
anything could happen, and for any reason whatsoever. And sometimes the more preposterous, the better, because we will come up with something, we're like, how about we do this crazy idea? And then it's like, no. And then we're like,
no, there's never. I mean, sometimes.
And then we say no. We say no at firfirst.
There's a few no's.
But then as we go,
and then there's like we have to.
Well, yeah,
it's like there's no. We have to.
Yeah.
Because if it doesn't go away, I mean, I'm sure you have moments like this too, where like an idea just comes and it keeps coming back to you, and you're like, well, wait a minute, it keeps coming back, so that means there must be some value to this.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see what happens. The spaghetti's stuck.
So did you have your Jerky Boys moment there, Brian? Is that what you did? Yeah.
That was my Jerky Boys moment. Long before the Jerky Boys. And so I remember when the Jerky Boys came out, I was like, I was doing this stuff back in when I was, before I was even whatever.
When 2 Bar was still just like
yeah. And I have I have a whole like
You have a catalog.
I have a whole catalog of this stuff.
Oh.
Might not be as clever and as nuanced as the Jerky Boys. It was just.
I
but
think
yeah.
we may have picked the cream of the crop.
That phone call was kind of the cream of the crop. Yeah.
The best one from the Jerky Boys is the guy who did the voice for the guy off of Rocco's Modern Life, the turtle. Yeah, the dentist pulled my tooth. God, it hurts. God, he starts screaming. The insurance claim. Oh, dude, that is hilarious.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, we were big fans of prank call compilations.
Oh,
I love the Jerky Boys. Roy D. Mercer, when he was still doing this thing before he passed away.
Mm-hmm.
Good stuff right there too. I know these are your babies. I understand that. But any track standing out more to you than any right now on this album? Possibly.
More of that, like we love all the babies. We
Um,
love them all equally. No.
that's a tough one, right?
Well, Call the Doctor was like the kitchen sink, and that I think for us meant a lot, just simply because like that was the single we put out, the music single in, I think, April 2021.
Yeah.
And then the video single of April 2022. So
And that's the hookiest one.
Yeah, that's like a big disco party. I don't know how to describe it. Disco glam trip out something. I don't know. It's like an extended dance track of its own. So it's kind of like a party in a can. But that was sort of the song that we wrote first and composed first and got together first, because it was the one that kept us in the best mood during a time when we really needed mood elevation.
Yeah, for sure.
So that was the little Prozac jam or whatever. I mean, not that. That was like maybe the whatever. I don't know, meth. Whatever people do to get in a good mood. It was that. It was the mushroom jam. I don't know.
Put out the single version in 2021, and there's a whole sort of funny ending where there's these like just a barnyard. We call it the barnyard ending. It's all these. It's like chickens and frogs and cows and all sorts of funny animals, and making all just kind of singing along to the ending of the song. But then when it came time to do the album version, we wanted to make it different, and so we ended up doing the sort of the Baltimore quarantine hellscape, with
Summertime
hellscape with like helicopters and sirens and barking dogs and people
Fireworks.
yelling and dirt bikes and fireworks and all the craziness, because
Jarring noises.
Yeah, we just wanted to take it in a different direction for the album, just to be more in just have something different as well.
And also, I mean, it's very easy because we make these long format songs for people that confuse us with like jam bands and bands like the Grateful Dead or Fish or something like that. But when you actually listen to the music, we always bring it back to death. And we don't want to be grim, but for what I think it's like a trip, good trip. You're gonna think about death at least a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that didn't make this album, we can see on another album, maybe an EP or just a single from you guys down the road.
Yeah, no, when we recorded these demos, we had
3 hours of demos.
Yeah, there was a point where we just kind of jammed for like a month or two straight and just recorded these demos without stopping. And at some point, I think by the nearing the end of summer 2020, I was like, well, we could keep doing this, but we have like several albums worth of material here. We should probably stop now and start to kind of put this together into something. So yeah, I feel like there's a whole nother album or more there. There's a lot of jams and things that didn't make it on the album that will probably end up in future albums, I imagine.
Yeah, maybe there will be like an improvised album where we do minimal editing, something like that. I could see that coming out as like an energetic B-side to this album as the A-side. Like, this is the thing we're putting in front and center. The sun, the moon will be like maybe a improvised album, perhaps.
And what I like about this is it's a double album. You don't see that anymore at all.
Yeah, I know.
It's extremely indulgent. We are indulging our egos as much as we can.
We've been threatening to put out a double album for years, and
I think we might have an audience for that too.
Well, and we kind of cultivated an audience for, because the last album,
we expect length.
Yeah, because the last album was one 40-minute long song, and the album before that was two 20-minute songs. And so people are always saying at the shows, well, a lot of people say like, I could have had, listen to that for twice as long. And so this is
like, well, there
so
you
now
go.
we're fulfilling that promise.
Yeah, here you go.
And it's immersive. I mean, it's meant to be this fully immersive, thing that just
great for like a long car trip. Great for a trip.
Great. Yeah, it's supposed to be like a trip, So it's
it's a journey.
Yeah, I imagine the next thing we do might be very, very short, just because we like to work, kind of in contrasts every now and then.
Like a Pong game.
Yeah.
We're just like going side to side. Like, okay, all right.
Is the track listing placement important for your guys' releases?
For sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's kind of meant to be taken as like a journey.
Yeah, and there's definitely like sort of kind of call it a concept album.
It's a concept album,
but it definitely follows like a arc. I mean, all of our albums, even if it's just
a story arc.
Even if it's just one song, there's always like an arc to our songs or whole albums. And so yeah, in some ways, like side A and B are sort of like the initial shock and panic.
Including I don't have to go to work. I'm gonna party all the time.
But also
call the doctor.
But then also the whole like, oh my God, what the hell's going on with the world? We're freaking out. And then sides 3 and 4 are kind of this more like, okay, we're getting
hang out in the garden.
We're getting used to it. It's not all that horrible. We could relax and just
go to the beach.
Get used to it.
We're in Maryland, so it's not that far for us.
Yeah, so I think so the album definitely feels like we definitely
even side 4, there's like there's a vaccine. I'm gonna get vaccinated. Will it work or is it witch doctor shit? And then I got vaccinated. I'm gonna go on the road again. Like the last song is like the return to the road.
Yeah.
2 minutes of yay, we're on tour again.
Yeah, but it's definitely we think about it very much when we were putting the album together. We very much kept putting the songs in orders, and I think we had to order.
Yeah, we would change it around.
We changed it around a little bit, but we put pretty early on. We had it pretty much. We knew where it was, like how it was supposed to go, and
everything was so intentional. Like it's weird because I think a lot of people think that we do this improvised thing, which is very flattering because I'm shit at improvisation.
Yeah, we don't.
Yeah, we only improvise.
People think we're experimental or improvisational, and we're just making noise off the top of our heads.
We're not good at that.
But it's not. It's very meticulously.
It's all so intentional.
Yeah.
That's the irony that we're going to play a noise festival this weekend.
Yeah, sure.
It's like, well, we're going to give you a 15-minute composed song, complete with video composed to every part of the song. Have fun.
We're going to step back here just for a little bit because I know you guys did this in the pandemic when you created this album, and I know you guys love doing this, but was there a sense that this had to come out kind of swinging for you guys, if that makes sense? Like, hey, we did this during quarantine. We took all of our time on this. This is us. This is our sound.
Yeah, well, there was definitely a sense of like we're taking forever to get this out. Let's finally. We really buckled down this year because we felt like, wow, we started this album in 2020, and here it is, the beginning of 2023, and it's still not together yet. So we really buckled down the first half of the year. We were really like,
we took off of our spring tour.
Yeah, we didn't do our usual spring tour. We're like, let's just like hammer this out and get this out now as soon as possible because we've been sitting on this egg for a long time, and it's time to get it out there and then move on to the next whatever stage or whatever it is. But have a real fun time with this while we got it out, and to make it kind of this big, bold statement. I mean, the fact that we're making a double record, is going to already require a lot of time commitment from people. So, we'll see how it goes.
I don't see it that way. If you're a fan and you like a song.
Oh, for sure. You get twice as much.
If you're a fan and you like a band, wouldn't you want more and more and more?
Yeah, for sure.
75 minutes worth?
There you go.
That's just I'm not a big stoner anymore, but I still think like one. That's my stoner brain clinking along.
Brian, you better be lucky, and your translator, buddy. She covers up. she sets it straight.
I do a lot of the writing. I'm the writer.
Did you guys add anything differently on this album musically than what fans are accustomed to hearing from you all?
Yeah, a few things for
Yeah.
sure. Because we're
Call the doctor. It's
yeah,
like, it's
yeah,
like a
Call the
fucking
Doctor.
disco song.
Yeah, so that's like Call the Doctor, and then some other things. Like when we did this album, the last album was 1 40-minute piece of music,
Mostly metal,
very monolithic, very intense, heavy, sort of dark. And we said, all right, I don't know if you agreed with me, but we were both like, I was like,
you want to do a pop album?
I was like, I want to do a pop album. And what I meant by that was Darsombra's version of a pop album. Not like we were going to put out songs that, sound like, but just, whenever I say things like that, I always mean Darsombra's version of that, which is still like, through some weird kind of looking glass kaleidoscope kind of thing anyway. And so the idea was like to have, the last several albums were just like 1 or 2 songs. And so now we got 10 songs. So that was like the idea to have shorter songs, a lot of different moods, something just, just like it's still this big all-encompassing thing because it's a big, monolithic 75-minute double album, but it goes through, I think, a lot more moods and dynamics than maybe we've done in the past because of the fact that there's so many different songs, and you can cover a lot more moods and ground if you have like 10 songs versus 1 song.
Well, to be fair, Transmission that was the 40-minute song that we put out in 2019 on the album Transmission. It was the only song on the album. It did have like 2 kind of sides to it, like one being very heavy and kind of like metal-y and kind of like Magma meets the Scooby-Doo theme music. And then the other side was more like this sunset in the desert that you're going to just mellow out on, eat all your mescaline and look at the stars until you see all the aliens kind of thing. But I mean, they both were about, like, for me as a video artist, for me as a video artist, a lot of times I have to conceptualize imagery or themes or narratives to the music just because that's the kind of video work I make. And so I saw Transmission as meditations on death and how humans see death, like maybe through a Judeo-Christian standpoint where it's, hell and brimstone and fire and metal and all that stuff. And then maybe through a more Indo reincarnation kind of mindset of like, well, no, you're going to die, but who says it's all that bad? You might come back as like a flamingo or something. This album, there still is that, hey, yeah, let's party, but you're going to die, like kind of mindset. But it does not fall into any sort of concept of metal at all.
I thought this is interesting. I know this is a collaborative effort, but you two are 2 totally different artists in what you do. How do you work this out along the collaborative effort? Because I know Ann does her video stuff, and then I know Brian's doing his crazy with his guitar and synthesizer and all that. How do you work this out? How do you say, okay, we're going to use this part in this and just match it?
I mean, initially it was just Brian doing the music, and then I started learning to play the synthesizer like 10 years ago, give or take. So initially, like, the synth stuff was really simple and really boring and more like a frame for what Brian was doing on the guitar because that's the showcase to me at the time. Now I'm getting a little bit better where I can go a little faster and explore like different time signatures or different playing techniques or whatever. And I'm getting more confident as a player. And so Brian's made a lot of room for me. It's, I guess, more of a complimentary thing. I don't know. How would you describe that? Like how it comes together.
Well, yeah, I think I make more room now because, well, just also too, I get bored. I can sit here and wank on my own guitar and make loops and layers forever, and that's fun and cool. But I want to hear more stuff than that, and I like the collaborative process. I like hearing what other people bring to it. So I leave room for Ann, and I go, here's a spot, do some stuff in here, or she'll just come up with some stuff on her own and be like, we need to put this in somewhere. And I find a spot to make it work. So
sometimes we worry it's not even gonna work. Like remember Mousy Broadway? Yeah.
Sometimes we get
knockdown
drag out
fights.
but
battles.
we work it all out in the end.
What were they saying in that Bachman Turner Overdrive? Leave me, go away. I was singing a Bachman Turner Overdrive song all day today when I was working in the garden.
I think it was Guess Who actually.
Guess
but
Who?
they're like the same band.
People. Yeah,
Same
it'll
band,
come to me at some point.
No
time left.
No time left for you.
No time for the killing floor.
She got put
Buy
up time on
myself some wings.
And I'll buy myself some wings. My favorite part was when I realized that he says, moving on to better things, gonna buy myself some wings.
And we're thinking like,
Like he's driving away from his girlfriend to go get wings.
Hey.
He says I'm gonna find myself some wings, but I'm gonna buy myself some wings.
Good deal. Go get you some boneless wings, buddy. There you go, Brian. All right. What's the growth musically you've seen from yourselves working on this album? If anything, has there been anything that's came out of y'all that impressed you the most, possibly?
Yeah.
Trying to learn how to play the songs live is going to be a real challenge for us as musicians, because that's something that we'd like to do. Like, we have Call the Doctor and Night Garden, 2 of the 10 songs, and we can play them live, but the rest of them are such creations of the studio.
Yeah, because when we were stuck,
it's going to be an adventure.
Knowing that we couldn't do shows or do anything, we just started recording songs. And then we thought in the past we would make songs up and figure them all out and then record them. And this time around, we just kind of made up songs in the studio. And we're like, oh, let's add in, 7 vocal parts and, 15 guitar lines, harmonizing. And then we're like, well, we can't really play that live, can we? It's just the 2 of us. So
and enter the backing track.
So we just figure out, this was, so now we have to figure out how we're going to do these tracks, how some of these songs live.
And also learn to play them, because when you're tracking something, you have an idea, you can just play that and keep working on little chunks of it so it
you
sounds
can keep
good.
punching in little bits.
But playing it all at once, we'd love to do live interpretations of Gibbet lore and the New Dell and Azimuth, but it's going to require actually learning to play these songs. Some of the album, even that, which song was it? You had this totally improvised lead. I don't even know if you.
Oh yeah, it was several
Everything
different. It was
canceled.
several bits of improvised, and
in
I
the
just
song,
sort of.
Everything is canceled. He's got just the raw recording of a lead that he.
Oh yeah, that was
made up one
it was
day.
just an
Probably
improvised.
Can't be replicated.
No, it was just an improvised lead, and it was so good. I'm like, well, we're sticking that on the album, and so as is. And yeah, maybe I could try to learn it, but I don't know. That might be a track. Again, this was totally this particular album, and because of the fact that we have several albums worth of live material we can play, we never conceived this album as, oh, we're gonna go out and play it. We just thought it's a fun experiment in the studio.
But now we want to play.
But now we want to play it, or at least parts of it live.
This is a party. We want to share.
So we kind of have to go back and sort of figure out how we're going to do that. So that's going to be a fun challenge. That's going to be
wintertime.
That'll be our wintertime
assignment.
Dumesday Book was mastered by John Smullian. How was working with him on this?
I love working with John.
He's an old friend of mine. I've been working with John since my old band Meat Jack. He was the guy who recorded a lot of our albums, and so it's real comfortable because he's a friend and he's here in town, and so it's not like I'm sending some stuff off to a stranger and then I get it back. It's like I can go over his house and we can hang out, and it's like it's more of a fun. It's like hanging out with a friend and working on something more than this sort of business sort of relationship, or so John's great. He's he's recorded several amazing albums. He's took some time off to raise a family. Now his family's kind of grown up, and now he's trying to get back into working on projects again, and I love the guy, so I thought, well, this let's do it.
He's so meticulous.
Yeah.
So meticulous. Besides the fact that he's an old friend and we love him, he's an old fan. We're fans of him. He also is better than anyone we could have sought out for hire. I don't mean to say better than say our last person who we hired. but the amount of care and effort that he put in again and again and again, especially when we get real fussy, I'm very grateful. These are good friends. We're really lucky.
And we're like a super like DIY kind of cottage industry sort of band. So anytime we can do something where we're working with, friends and stuff like that, or just people, because this business, this music thing we do, in some places it can feel really like this weird sort of business relationship thing with whether it be a promoter or a business, a record label, or a studio engineer, something like that. So anytime we can have this sort of be like close to home, friends involved, and that sort of thing, that's like really where we're most comfortable. We're doing this for fun because we're making weird music that nobody has any delusion that we're going to get rich making. So because of that, it affords us this opportunity to have it be this, this thing that we can, let it be like that, where it's and as a result, we've actually cultivated a lot of really good friendships and with the people that would normally, be like whatever promoters, or I don't know, it's just a different way to be a little more kind of DIY and just, more hands-on with it. It makes it more personal. It's kind of more fulfilling than it would be if it was just like, oh, this is my paycheck, this is my day job or whatever.
Yeah. Now, Ann, you did the artwork for this album.
Yeah.
How did you come up with this?
My background's in visual art, so like I'm the one poking on Photoshop and all that. But Brian comes up with a lot of ideas as well. You can tell a little bit about the desert landscape.
Yeah, okay. As another sort of quarantine COVID sort of thing, Ann started getting into creating bismuth crystals, which are these it's this stuff you melt down, and then as it dries, it sort of turns into these rainbow pyramid kind of looking things.
That's a little one, really beautiful. I mean, you have no control over how it's gonna come out, but
the one, this is like, normal size, not very big, like the size of maybe a die. But I had a lucky day and got a giant fucking Frankenstein looking monster crystal. This thing probably weighs like 2 pounds. It's really heavy.
Jeez, you knocked me out with that.
Right? I was like, this baby's gonna be on the album cover. But I mean, conceptually, the desert background is this really, really unusual place called the Bisty Badlands in New Mexico, south of Farmington, north of Gallup. And a spot that we really enjoyed exploring in the spring of 2022 when we had COVID on tour and we're quarantining in the van. So we thought, well, we're stuck in the desert. Let's go see some things. There's nobody around because it's a desert. And we went and visited this very unusual landscape during a wildfire, which I'm sure was not good for getting over COVID. I mean, we were literally hiking out there, taking pictures of that desert landscape with like masks on, not to get other people sick, but to keep the sand blowing out of our faces.
Mm-hmm.
And the smoke.
Full body coverage. I mean, just total, like, it's like you're on the moon, like, and you have your moon suit on so you don't destroy your body. But between the sort of otherworldliness of that environment, especially in the wildfire smoke, and the idea of like this alien giant, here, I'll do a impression, like, boop, 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 boop. Landing.
and it sort of has like a, I don't know, like almost like a Stanley Kubrick
Stanley
kind of a vibe. I mean,
2001.
Stanley Kubrick's 2001 A Space Odyssey movie is a huge influence on our aesthetic, sonically and visually.
It informs like everything.
Yeah, and so, so we were like, oh, how do we make it, Kubrickian?
Now we're going to talk about just Ann and Brian. We're going to figure out you guys. We're going to talk a little bit about you all, what you guys like personally. We're going to throw Darsombra out the window for just a little bit here.
Sure. Yeah.
If you could write an album equivalent to your favorite band's album, which album would that be?
Ooh,
I know you got a lot of albums that you love, but there's got to be one that you could say, if we could write an album just like, say, Metallica's Master of Puppets, that's what I would want to do.
Well,
Yeah,
that's a good one.
That's a great
That's
one.
a really good one. That
Yeah,
was
that-
my favorite album and favorite band for a brief period of time. I actually got to see him twice
Maybe the same period of time.
Oh.
on that tour.
Phone call?
No, that was way after.
Way after the phone call.
Yeah, yes. And I got to see him twice on that tour. And I got to tell you, the band's never been the same for me since then. You know, when Cliff left us, that was like, the band is never quite the same for me again. But yeah, a Master of Puppets. Another good ones for me is like, I like concept albums like Dark Side of the Moon or Magma's
Anything by Magma.
Magma's
Anything.
Mechanic Destructive Commando
But really anything.
or Contre Cause.
Even their last album.
Rush,
Felicity
Hemispheres.
Falls, all of them. Oh yeah, probably a Rush album. I mean, that would be if we were to choose one that we agree on. Probably something like Fly by Night or even Caress of Steel. I know that Rush kind of disowns that one. I mean, not disowns, but it's not their favorite work.
Yeah.
But God, I would, my favorite, one of my favorite albums of all time that just makes me feel really good listening to it is the Rolling Stones album Let It Bleed. I don't think it's a concept album. I think the arrangement of the songs, they could rearrange it, and I probably would know the difference because I'm so familiar with the album. It'd be nice to offer something like that one day, maybe. I don't know. I don't think we ever will, but something that I want to listen to, and it's like comfort food for music. For me.
Yeah, for sure.
So I
So
think
Brian,
something like
Brian,
that.
my man, I gotta know this. I have to know this, my man. You got to see my favorite band of all time, Metallica, on the Master of Puppets.
Yeah.
So I tell it like it is. Without Master of Puppets, I would not be sitting here to this day.
Yeah.
Would not be sitting here.
Yeah, that album was a huge influence on me. I think I learned to play almost every song on that album. I'd sit in my bedroom for years and never got out and did a band. I was just content to sit in my bedroom and learn those riffs because they're just so
And
good.
it's so crazy, man. That album saved my freaking life in a time I didn't know that. In a time I didn't know that I need music as much as I did.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
for-
Music saves us all the time.
So for you seeing that tour and seeing the Mighty Cliff, I gotta know, man, how was it?
It was amazing. I saw him twice on that tour. The first time was at this place called the Capitol Center. If you've ever seen the movie or the documentary Heavy Metal Parking Lot, that was filmed in the parking lot of that was for a Judas Priest show.
But
it was filmed in the same parking lot as that venue. The first venue I ever went to, my dad took me to see Kiss there in 1977. So that was a venue I grew up going to, seeing big shows, Metallica, Rush, Kiss, so many bands throughout the years. It was amazing. We went to this show, and somebody only just recently reminded me about this, and I had totally forgotten this. But I remember we were driving to the show with a bunch of friends, and we were probably getting stoned in the car on the way up, and we pulled into the parking lot. And I had totally forgotten this story, but a friend reminded me of this just like last week. He's like, do you remember we pulled in the parking lot and this guy stops us and he said, are you guys under the influence? And we all thought we were busted. And then he said, of rock and roll. And we were like, all right, we're not busted. So it was great. They were opening for Ozzy Osbourne, who I believe was on the Speak No Evil tour maybe or something. I can't remember. I wasn't as much into Ozzy at that point. I had seen Ozzy on the Blizzard of Oz tour, and those first two albums with Randy Rhoads were kind of my favorite era of Ozzy solo.
Lord mercy, you've seen people I want to. I seen Ozzy and I got to see Metallica.
So I was more interested in seeing Metallica than Ozzy at that point, because at that point I was my favorite years of Ozzy were long gone, but he was still good too. But when Metallica came out, they didn't have any fancy anything. They just had a big backdrop of the album cover of Master of Puppets that they were playing in front of, and I was just so excited, and I started banging my head like so hard that I actually ended up like blacking out on the seat of the guy in front of me for a couple of seconds. And next thing I know, my friend's pulling me back up like, hey man, you all right? And I'm like, and then I started banging my head again, so, and then I saw him again several months later on that same tour, still with Ozzy, totally different venue. It was like an outdoor pavilion kind of a place. And at that point, it was really interesting because sometime in the weeks leading up to that show, James had broken his arm in some kind of a skateboarding accident. And so he was only singing and that during that concert, and he had his arm in a sling. And some other guy was like just off stage playing all his guitar parts. And I was a little disappointed because I was taking a friend and I was like, you got to see this band. They're amazing. And then James was just sitting there in a sling, not playing his guitar. And for me, it kind of wasn't as intense as James, hunched over with his guitar singing. That's the Metallica I envisioned, but it was still every bit as amazing. And Cliff was great. He did his solos both nights because that's Cliff. He's just an amazing, amazing bass player. Just a very one of the most unorthodox, metal bass players I could ever think of. He even seemed out of place in the band. They all look like metalheads, and then he looked like he stepped out of some 70s like Grateful Dead band or some kind of looking thing. There was bell bottoms and stuff. But man, when he unleashed that Rickenbacker, it sounded like a motorcycle taking off or something. But melodic. It's like the melodicism that he had was just like, you just thought it's such a rare thing. It was so tragic. And I saw the band several times after that with Jason and all. But man, that was life changing. And they were my favorite band for several years. And I learned all the riffs off of those albums. And so I imagine I kind of cut my teeth on that. So I imagine a lot of my guitar style to this day, is owed to the fact that I, spent many days in my bedroom, like learning these really chunky chromatic riffs. They had a lot of weird, I liked the band at the time because I don't know, metal was kind of diverging at that point in time. There was like Motley Crue on one side and the party crowd, and then they were singing about girls and parties, and then there was these, thrash metal, which was sort of like the offspring of crossover, and they were singing about dark things and like politics and war and things like that and Armageddon. And I was like, yeah, because I was kind of getting disillusioned with metal for a while there, and I started listening to more punk. But then Metallica came out, and I was like, whoa, okay, this has got the energy of punk and hardcore, but even heavier because of the metal and stuff. And so, they were a huge thing for me for many years.
And seeing that backdrop, man, fuck, that's all they need to have. I mean, they didn't need anything else. That backdrop to come out and say, fuck you, let's go.
Yeah.
That's that. Oh, I envy you, man, because I wish I was in that crowd watching that Master of Puppets tour. Because
yeah.
Oh man,
I went home and wrote down all the songs they did, because I was like, I always used to keep notes back then, like, oh, I saw so and so, and they did almost the whole album. They did a good chunk of it. I think they did all the side one and a couple of songs on side two, and then some songs from the older albums too. And Ozzy gave them a good long set. I think they played for about an hour or something. They got long songs. Back then their songs were not short. So it was nice. It was very nice.
So what's been your most memorable show that the band has been a part of that you still can't believe to this day that it's been a part of? If you've had that moment yet.
Oh yeah, for sure. There's been a
few.
There's been a few.
You want to go first? I have one in mind if you still.
I have a show that we did but it wasn't. It was weird because yes, it was, and we made a documentary about it recently, and we just released it earlier this year. Yeah, we were in the middle of a big long tour. What year was that? 2017. And there was going to be
It was a tour across North America, so like out across Canada and then back across the northern part of the U.S.
Yeah, and we had some days off, and we were realizing, oh shit, there's going to be a solar eclipse.
A total
solar eclipse visible to where we're driving near, and so we're kind of known for doing these pop-up generator shows where we'll just live stream them all of a sudden. That was something that came about back in 2016 when like Facebook started doing the live thing and all that stuff, and people could just all of a sudden go live. So we're like, hey, let's go live with a concert or whatever. Better yet, let's go live with a concert from some crazy location in the desert or the ocean behind us or something like that. And so we started doing those for a while, and then we were just like, hey, let's go to a place out in the middle of nowhere, Wyoming, and during a solar eclipse and play during the eclipse. And it's really interesting because we play a long 20-minute song. And when the song starts, it kind of looks like we're playing in full daylight. And we timed it so that by the middle of the song, it would be like full totality. And we projected our visuals onto the band, our van, which was behind us. And so by the middle of the song, all of a sudden it was dark. The visuals with the films were showing up behind us. And then it was still another 10 minutes left to the song. And so by the time the song's ending, it's daylight again, and the train goes by. And so I don't know. That was one of the most amazing moments ever. And it wasn't really like a show with people at it. I mean, these two German tourists just happened to show up to watch the eclipse, and they happened to pull into where we were doing this. So like, oh, I guess we get the eclipse and this band. So, that was to me like a really wild high moment. And earlier this year we released a documentary about it.
Yeah, it's on our YouTube page.
Yeah, to just
it was all serendipity.
Yeah, it wasn't like really planned out. It was kind of planned out in the last minute, and then somehow it worked.
We lived to tell the tale. I think my memorable one might be, it's a lot less of a story, but it just was very unusual, special night in a town, well, really a huge mega city in West Java, Indonesia, in a town called Bandung. And we played the city ruins. We found out the day of that we were playing the city ruins. Bandung, as a town, as an Indonesian place, has kind of issues with rock music politically, in that, like, was it Deep Purple went there in the 70s and blew out the town's power supply, and so I think there was a ban on live music in that respect. I mean, live amplified music.
Yeah, specifically rock music.
So that's why they didn't tell us where we were playing till the day before. So it was this very sort of guerrilla-y underground kind of thing. Like, okay, we're going to drop you off by this box store right here. Millions of scooters going by and cars everywhere, and just crazy Southeast Asia, like super hyper-populated environment. And you're just going to walk under the highway and go past this, that, and there will be a bunch of ruined houses, some of which are still occupied, some of which are being knocked down for them to build a superhighway. And it's a big political battle over eminent domain and all this. And you're going to play right in the middle of that. And we thought, yeah, that sounds amazing. We're so excited. And like 100 people showed up for a show that was announced like the day of. There were 9 bands on the bill, because that's how they do it in Indonesia. They're just, like kids, grandparents, like people of all ages sitting in the rubble, watching the shows. Oh, so fun. I did a video of that is on our YouTube page. It's not like a documentary or anything. I am kind of dreaming about doing a little doc, maybe this winter if I have a free second, about our trip to Southeast Asia when we toured there in 2018 and played Malaysia, Singapore, Vietnam, and Indonesia, because it was a really unusual experience that kind of put the wind in our sails in terms of like, oh yeah, we're doing the right thing here. This is right. And also, when do we get to go back?
All right, folks, Darsombra will release their new album entitled Dumesday Book via their own record label on August 25th. And you want to get out and pick that up. So, guys, how can folks stay in touch with you or buy this new album, these 2 new singles, everything under the name of Darsombra? How can you do that?
Well, there's darsombra.com, which is the easiest because it links to everything. But then, we're on Bandcamp, and you can get it at Bandcamp as well. So Bandcamp or darsombra.com. We have our own mail order, but then we also, have stuff through the Bandcamp store as well.
And we have a record label.
Pnictogen Records.
That was brand new. A pnictogen is like a chemical element. It's the elemental family that bismuth is a part of.
And I'll have all these links in the description of this podcast. So that way nobody can say, I don't know where to go get it. You just click on more, view more, and all the links are there, folks. Oh, mind-blowing. Mind-blowing.
Thank you so much. It's really been an honor to talk to you. Your questions are like top-notch.
Thank you so much. Stick around. We got some great stuff coming up, and you only hear these interviews right here on BODS Mayhem Hour. Please check out our Facebook page. It has a podcast link and our YouTube link. that you definitely want to go subscribe to the YouTube link if you like what I'm doing, and I hope you guys and gals do, because I like bringing this to you all. And go check out Darsombra. Pick up their new album that's going to be released on August 25th. Dumesday Book. Go check them out, folks. I believe you guys will like them. So, Brian and Ann, thank you so much for doing this interview. And I wish y'all nothing but the best of luck as always.
Thank you. You too.
You're listening to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.